Jessica Lewis, and I'm host of the Time to Wine broadcast. Hi, Kerith. So tell us where you're located right now. You're near Harrodsburg in Windsor.
Hi,
Where is
Jessica.
that?
Thank you for having me today. I'm Kerith Overstreet. I'm the winemaker and owner of Bruliam Wines in Sonoma County. My winery production facility is located in Windsor, California. We live in Healdsburg nearby, and our estate vineyard is in Healdsburg. And then I source from a number of different vineyards around Sonoma County.
Okay, and I actually want to come visit. And I'm in Eugene, Oregon, in the Willamette Valley. So today it's sunny here. We have no fires. COVID is kind of who knows, and everything's okay. Okay, so the Time to Wine broadcast is a live broadcast featuring experts in wine, social media marketing, featuring experts in wine, social media marketing, and leadership. The speakers are featured on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter. The live broad stream is every other week at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is on YouTube, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and I was just approved for LinkedIn Live, so we went live today on LinkedIn. So if you'd like to see more interviews with our tribe, hit subscribe. All right. So right now, we're going to talk to Kerith Overstreet. She is the owner of Bruliam Winery, which is a women-owned winery specializing in Pinot Noir. They also make delicious Chardonnay and Rockpile zinfandel. Her state-of-the-art winery is located between Windsor and Harrodsburg. So can you tell us a little bit? You have a very eclectic, interesting work history. So can you tell us a little bit about your background? And you
Sure,
also
thanks.
are a heavy social media user and do some really interesting things with video. So we should talk about that too. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you again for having me, Jessica, and thanks for asking. Yes, so I came to winemaking as a second career. Growing up, my dad always said to me, "You can be whatever you want after medical school." And I held up my end of the deal. So I went to medical school at the University of Rochester. I did an internship in general surgery. I did a residency in surgical pathology. I completed 2 specialty fellowships. I passed my boards. And then promptly decided, I think I'd rather be a winemaker. So I went back to UC Davis and completed the coursework with their enology viticulture program. And I started Bruliam Wines in 2008. That year, I made 1 barrel of wine, just 25 cases. That was it. And I've grown since then. So today I make about 1,200 cases a year. Everything is very small production. I make 4 different single vineyard Pinot Noirs, Chardonnay, Zinfandel, Rosé, and every few years I do a fun project with a late harvest Sauvignon Blanc, a dessert wine.
So what I wanted to ask you really quickly about that jump. Okay, so we went to medical school, which is kind of a prestigious or a sort of occupation. Was it what kind of fear did you have to jump through to stop doing that and pursue something that you really enjoyed and loved?
That's a great question. So, some of it I think was a leap of faith. Some of it was just having a lot of moxie, not really being aware of all of the challenges of winemaking and having a winery. I love winemaking, but my forte is not marketing. My forte is not sales. My forte is not label design or working with focus groups to figure out the best label to stand out on a shelf in a retail store. And perhaps it was for the best that I didn't recognize all of those blind spots that I would have. But growing up, I was always encouraged to do my best and reach for the highest. And it never occurred to me that I couldn't start a winery. It never crossed my mind that I couldn't be a winemaker. I mean, I went right from high school to Cornell to medical school and powered right through the whole thing. And I thought, well, I've done harder things. How hard can it be to start a winery? Famous last words, right?
Right. And sometimes just stepping into fear and your thoughts create your reality and then just going for it. And so that's really inspirational to a lot of people, I believe. So why did you decide to study enology? Am I saying that
So
correctly?
you are. So,
Okay.
I was always a enthusiastic wine consumer like you are. When I was a resident, We had fun wine tasting groups, and I always enjoyed wine as a consumer. I enjoyed reading about wine, blind tasting wine. And then when I started the winery, I realized it was really time to take my education to that professional level. So that's when I went back and did the UC Davis classes. I actually did my first harvest without, probably even my second one, without the UC Davis classes. When you go to medical school, you're very good at reading textbooks and retaining information. So before that first harvest, I got a textbook. I read the textbooks. I showed up knowing a lot of theoretical things about winemaking with having no practical work experience making wine to back it up. But because I could talk the talk, I got to do a lot of things and jump right into the process. And then, of course, I went back and started the UC Davis program, which allowed me to have a better understanding of the theoretical. And I paired that, of course, with all the practical experience being in the winery, harvest after harvest, as I go into my 13th harvest this year. Lucky 13th.
Oh, nice. So is the background in medical with the chemistry and science, did that make this? I would imagine there's a lot of chemistry involved in winemaking. So did you tie those two together?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you
Okay.
don't have to go to medical school to be a winemaker, and you don't have to be a scientist to be a winemaker, but it really helps to have a strong foundation in science, having an
Mhm.
understanding of microbiology and biochemistry, because
That's what
everything
I was
that can
thinking.
go wrong in the winery and anything that can go wrong with your wine is usually biochemistry secondary to microbiology. So there's bad actors, there's bad microbes that get into your wine or into your barrel, and they create these byproducts that make your wine taste or smell bad.
I
So
sort of
it's
I sort
helpful
of
to
fit
have
the
that
two together
background.
and thought that background was probably incredibly helpful for all kinds of things and viruses and everything else that go on. Okay, so let's talk about. Now I know. Do you have 5 vineyards or 4?
So we own one vineyard in the
You own
Russian
one
River
vineyard.
Valley,
Okay,
and
so
then
let's
the
talk about
rest of the fruit I
all of
source.
that. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You
I
go
cut
ahead.
you off.
Okay, so you own one vineyard, and on your website there are vineyards that. So I know that you do a lot of partnering with another family nearby. So do you want to talk a little bit about your vineyard and the partnering you do to have different varietals, etc.?
Sure. So I
Okay.
think what a lot of people who don't make wine or who don't work in the industry understand is that you can own vineyards and grow grapes, but you don't make wine. You sell all of those grapes. Likewise, you can have a winery and a production facility and the building to make the wine and have a winery license and be a bonded winery, but not even own any vineyards. So then you're buying all of your fruit from different growers. I'm a vigneron, so I'm a combination of the two. Of course, the bulk of the fruit that I use is purchased from my vineyard partners, and then we have a small vineyard of our own in the Russian River Valley. So I make obviously a Pinot from our estate fruit here in the Russian River Valley, and then under the Pinot Noir umbrella, I make 3 other Pinot Noirs from different vineyards that are owned and farmed by our vineyard partners, whom I work with very, very closely throughout the entire year, not just the harvest season. We're always in contact with one another, and I value those relationships very, very deeply. I am the smallest player on the big boy playground. There's no other girl making 1,200 cases who plays with the caliber of well known fruit that's in my harvest armamentarium. So I'm very grateful for my vineyard partners.
Okay. And then with your wine, where is it distributed right now?
For wholesale,
Mm-hmm. Or
so
or
for
or for purchase.
Okay, so for wholesale, meaning that you might be able to find it in a restaurant or in a retail shop, we have distribution in New York, Texas, Michigan.
Okay, so all over the
Um,
United States pretty much then.
yeah, I know I'm
Okay.
missing a few states here, so forgive me. Illinois. Um, and then if we're shipping just direct to consumer, that we can ship pretty much everywhere. But
Okay.
that's just, people buying from home, direct to consumer.
Okay. So do you want to talk about your new wine releases?
Sure. So, being a small winery, we actually don't have a wine club. We use an allocation program. So, twice a year, we send out an email to everybody who's on our distribution list. And we say, these are the wines that we're going to release. Everything is small production, and we're going to give you this window of opportunity to purchase the wines. So, we do one in the fall and one in the spring. So, as we approach harvest season and fall coming up, we're going to be getting ready for our fall release. And every year, the fall release includes the Sobranos Vineyard Pinot Noir from the San Lucia Highlands. It's a complex, layered Pinot Noir that just requires a little bit more bottle age to come together. So I release that Pinot Noir after the different Sonoma County Pinots. The fall release also includes the much beloved Rockpile Zin. So the 2019 vintage is coming down the pike. We also released the new Chardonnay. I don't make a lot of Chardonnay. It tends to sell out very quickly, which is why we end up releasing the Chardonnay very close to after bottling. And then I just beg everybody, lay it down in your cellar, hold it, don't open it right away, please. So the fall release will also include the 2020 Chardonnay. And then it's also going to include the 2019 Torrey Hill Vineyard Pinot Noir, which is our estate vineyard. So 2 Pinots, some Chard, and some Zin.
And do you have, so, okay, but prior to COVID, do you have a lot of tourists that come to your area, that come to your winery? Or do you, just kind of explaining what your situation is with consumers, is it a huge tourist area where people go from winery to winery? Do you have some sort of consortium there? Or do people primarily buy from you online or in retail?
So it's a combination of all the three. In 2017, I moved to a new shared cooperative facility called Grand Cru, located here in Windsor, California, and Sonoma. And we have 6 individual private tasting lounges. So because we are in Sonoma County, because we're in wine country, of course, we have lots and lots of tourists, and we're grateful for all the tourism support in Sonoma County. Unlike some wineries that are located in vineyards, my winery is a little bit more of an urban winery. It's centrally located close to Santa Rosa. And we do have lots and lots of tourists. And I'm excited to share that I'm booking out private tasting appointments all the way into November right now.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I love having visitors at the winery. It's such a treat. It's so much fun. And the tastings are with me. They're usually 60 to 70 minutes, and nobody leaves unhappy.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so I know you have 2 dogs that are very special to you, and they have a special meaning in regard to your branding experience. So can you talk about your dogs? I posted them on LinkedIn, and that was a very popular photo. So can you tell us about your dogs, their names, and their relationship to the winery?
Sure, we have 2 dogs. We have Dexter and we have Chewy. And we adopted Dexter from the Healdsburg Animal Shelter when my twins were in first grade and Bruno was a third grader. And he is a terrier mix. And in his youth, he was a great runner. He would train for marathons with me. He could run like 18 miles. He was amazing. And now he's a senior guy and he can't really run much anymore without having back pain and arthritis. So in February of 2020, just before COVID, we adopted a second rescue pup, this time from the Santa Rosa Animal Society located in Sebastopol, California. And his name is Chewy, like Chewbacca, because he has a brindle coat and he is a border collie mutt mix. And he is super duper cute and he is very beloved and he loves to have a job. So he loves to come to the winery. I don't usually take him during harvest, during production, because he likes to roam around and sniff stuff, but he's great in the tasting rooms. He loves to come to tastings. And whomever I'm tasting with, he comes up and sniffs them and wags his tail, and then he sort of adopts them. So he'll just sit in the winery at their feet resting, and border collies like to protect stuff. So then if like the post office shows up or if UPS shows up and there's an Amazon delivery, he starts barking at whoever shows up in front of the winery to make a delivery because he's protecting the people in the tasting room. But people love him and we call him Chewy the marketing collie.
Okay, Chewy the marketing colleague. And did you talk about his photo on your
He
label?
yes, he's going to
Yeah.
be making his debut. So for our estate vineyard in the Russian River Valley for Torrey Hill, Our inaugural vintage was in 2012. And we asked the kids, what does home ranch mean to you? And they came up with this awesome illustration that has our house, which is indeed a yellow house, but it looks like it's this like lean to. And then it has Dexter, and it looks like he's levitating above the vineyard. So I said to Lily, how come Dexter doesn't have any legs? He looks like he's sort of just floating in the air. And she goes, Mom, he's sitting down. You can't see them. So that inspired the tradition of our kids collaborating to draw the label every single vintage. So every vintage has a different art label, and you can see the evolution of their art as the kids have gotten older. The 2019 vintage that we're going to be releasing in the fall is Chewy's label debut. So we have both Chewy and Dexter on the 2019 label. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The labels had a tons of charm. They tell the story about what it means to have a small family winery. And it's a Pinot Noir that's wonderfully classic for terroir. It's just a classic Russian river with all of the aromatics you'd expect: cherry cola, red candy, violets, warm baking spices, cardamom, mace. It is a crowd pleaser Pinot Noir if there ever was.
Yes, it sounds wonderful. I need to I have an MBA which works really well with you guys sometimes. And my whole career is in marketing, but I have a WeSet 2. I need to keep going a little forward with that with a WeSet 3 and do the finish that out because this so I know a little bit more about the wine side. Okay, so on your you have a new branding situation. So at Chewy the dog is in the branding situation, but I know that you've done a rebranding with your label, and also you have the name of your winery is coming from your medical career, correct?
Right. So
Yes.
Bruliam is actually named after my kids.
Oh, your
So
kids. Okay. So okay.
Brulium is for Bruno, Lily, Amelia. It's an amalgamation of their three names together. But of course, Brulium kind of sounds like cadmium or polonium or beryllium. So the original label from the very first vintage back in '08 is a riff on the periodic table of elements. And of course, a cheeky nod to my past medical career and my history of being in science and being, a researcher in science. So then, when you do that initial label, when you're making 25 cases of wine, I didn't give as much sort of long-term thought into where I'd be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So at 10 years, we did a label refresh. So those first labels started coming out with the 2017 vintage. And for the updated label, the classic BU riff on the periodic table of elements got shrunk down and moved to the top of the label, and it's embossed. And then on the original label, instead of having the atomic weight and the atomic number for our made up element, we had a double dot for my twins and a single dot for Bruno. And those little symbols have gotten incorporated into the script of the new label. And in addition, the border of the label shows this cool, intricate, interlocking silver pattern, which can either represent DNA, double stranded DNA, and a tribute to my medical background, or the cicadas, which is the interlocking snakes that you see as a symbol for medicine.
And so one thing I wanted to ask you about that, you're very savvy on social media with fun videos and music and all kinds of things in the background. So you were telling me a little bit about how you did that, but do you want to talk a little bit about your entertaining social media usage
Oh, you're
with
super kind to ask because I'm embarrassed because I have like 900 followers. I have very few followers,
well,
but
it's
I'm lucky
what I've
that the
seen thus
followers
far is
I have
pretty
are.
entertaining.
Yeah, so I am a ham and I do love to teach. So when I was a resident and a fellow, most of what I did was, especially during my fellowships, I was teaching other residents. I was leading tumor boards. I was teaching medical students. I'd always taught medical students. So when I left medicine and went into winemaking, I sort of sometimes missed having that teaching element. So for me, doing the short little videos has been a really fun way to both entertain people and take people behind the scenes of what I'm doing in the winery and to teach people a little bit about the nuts and bolts of winemaking or what's going on in the vineyard during bloom or what are the things that we think about when we talk about harvest or ripeness or what are we looking for. So it's been fun to create these little snippets that I hope are engaging and I hope are funny, that also have a little teaching lesson embedded in them too.
Well, I think they're very entertaining. I like them because I was asking you how you were doing your little videos with the music. I'm so busy with what I'm doing. It takes about 50 hours a week. I'm going to have to add a team in that can help me with these other things. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about COVID. Um,
Sure.
we didn't know we were having a global pandemic. I don't think any of us had that on our
Oh, no, it was
our
not on the
list.
radar.
So, what would you say some of the silver linings were from this sequestered experience or frightening
That's a
experience?
nice,
There were some
nice
nice
way to
things that
say it.
happened.
Sure, sure. And again, I'm lucky that COVID for me was an inconvenience and an economic hardship. Like, I'm very lucky that it wasn't heartbreaking. I've been lucky that I haven't lost family members or friends to COVID. So I'll just put that out there, that my heart goes out to everybody who has. But from a winery's perspective, when we sold wholesale into other states, we relied heavily, heavily on restaurants, because it's restaurants where the staff really get behind your wine and they tell the story about your wine and they get excited about it. So, of course, when COVID happened and all those restaurants shut down, for us, wholesale just tanked.
Mm.
Like, people weren't going to restaurants and we didn't have a big retail presence on shelves of retail shops in different states. And we're so small, we're not really at chain wine shops or like at Costco, we're just too small. So we had to pivot and find ways to get our wines top of mind and in front of people and into their hearts when everyone was at home. So, really early in the lockdown, I turned to Zoom and started doing very, very regular, structured sort of online Zoom teaching seminars where we just would have different topics. I'd send out the link to all of the people on our mailing list, and people would come on and listen. And we'd always start sort of by talking about, what do you have open? What are you drinking tonight? And then I would sort of delve into the topic. And I found that 45 minutes seems about right for people to be sitting and listening on Zoom. I also tried to bring in different experts. So we had Daniel, our cork rep from Porta Cork, come on one time and talk about the cork making process. And he showed really cool videos of punching out corks in the trees. And I had our wonderful barrel partner from Vicard come on, and she had really cool videos of steam bending barrels and toasting barrels. And bringing in special guests has always really have been among the most popular Zoom sessions that I've done. I did one with the proprietor of Grand Cru, Robert, who owns it, about what does it take and what were you thinking when you decided to open a co-op winery and have 20 wineries and 20 winemakers and 20 bosses and personalities, all working in the same shared space. So that was a really fun one too. So for me, I think the silver lining has really been to connect with the people who support my wines where they are, connect with them from home in a really regular way. Because as much as I love having them come to visit me, and they do, not everybody is able to come from Texas or North Carolina or Illinois or Ohio or wherever they live to come visit me in Sonoma County. So this has been really a wonderful way to sort of build humanity and relationships with the people who drink my wine. Because when it comes down to it, wine's all about relationships, right? It's about shared humanity and shared meals and shared experiences and shared memories. So why wouldn't I tap into that with a full heart and with zest and enthusiasm?
And I think, I would say the silver lining for me too is, so I was teaching social media marketing in Europe for a big university. And then I sat, and I actually am an entrepreneur. So I started this in a different way. So it keeps evolving. So when I started the video, I think what was sort of daunting was, all of these graphics and things on the video. I had to learn how to do all of this. I had to purchase this software, and then I had to learn how to do the graphics. I had to learn how to get this ready, et cetera, et cetera. And our little banners that I've forgotten to post, which are right here at the bottom. And I have other things to post here. So all of this so I sat and learned how to do this, and then I'm a speaker. Yeah, so they're at the bottom, and then I have other ones. I've just been talking, so I forgot to post them, but I'll post them here. And then it's a bit daunting just to hop onto video and start speaking and not be really sure who's watching, or they get passed around all over the world. So I just kind of went for it and went. So, and I'll post these little things here so people can see them.
Well, Jessica, I think that's spoken like a true entrepreneur who is always evolving and changing and adopting new technology and pivoting as things change. I think sort of that nimble mindset is, you know, typical for entrepreneurs like you.
And I think that this is the first time. So I was working at a university. I'm an entrepreneur. I started the first collegiate social media club within the university. Then I started the first wine marketing program within the university. Then I kind of came out of the university and kept going. And so those things, I decided to start the social media club out here and do the wine marketing class out here. So it keeps evolving and becoming more and more interesting. So yes, and I believe when you're an entrepreneur, you have to just create things and keep going. So I know you have a heavy charitable mandate. You do a lot of contribution to charities. Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I think I'm very, very lucky. I came out of medical school without debt because I had grandparents who were able to pay my tuition, which is huge. Most physicians do not come out of medical school debt free. And because of that fact, I was able to transition into winemaking and go from being a physician who had completed 2 fellowships and published 16 papers to someone who made 1 barrel of wine, 25 cases. And because of that, I just always thought it was important to sort of give back and be grateful for the lucky position that I'm in, being able to do what I love. So we do give back to charity. And sort of one of the more recent fun ones we did was a photo contest for people who buy my wine to submit photos of themselves with their bottles or a glass of wine in different fun locations, different beautiful glamour bottle shots. And we posted the pictures on social media and in different places for people to get to vote. And for the top 3 winning photos, we made donations to the charity of their choice. So gosh, now I have to remember here. One of the top winning photo went to the MS Foundation for an MS Foundation walk. I think place 3 might have gone to a food bank in Texas. And you'll forgive me that I can't remember the second place charity. But I mean, we've been doing things like this since 2008. And sometimes we'll ask our distributors in different markets, is there a charity that's important to you? Or we'll ask some of our restaurant partners, is there a charity that's important to you? Thank you for supporting our wine. So there's a restaurant in Sacramento that really felt strongly about a not-for-profit that supported single moms and babies to make sure that they had enough food, all the emotional support that they needed, housing support if that's what they needed. So we made a donation to that charity. Our ethos has always been doing more small donations so that we can touch people. We certainly don't have the means to make $1 million grants, but we do enjoy being able to give to a lot of different places in small ways.
Well, it's a very nice position to be in too, and I believe it is a karmic thing. You give what you get, and so I'm in this position too where I'm feeling very compelled to. I'm interested in starting a nonprofit that does things like provides uniforms and school supplies to children in need. And so I've been kind of compelled to do that, but also giving to my local, I've been very compelled to give to my local community lately. So, all right. So I think we've kind of covered everything. Do you have anything else that you wanted to discuss well, let's talk about really quickly. If someone wanted to connect with you on I know what I wanted to ask you. There's 2 things. So if they wanted to connect with you on social media, how would they find you? So we've got some things here, which I can post this at the bottom. This is your Twitter handle here. But how would they find you on social media if they wanted to come visit or wanted to come on a tour?
That's great. Thanks for asking. So on social media, you can find me on I've got a LinkedIn account. It's Bruliam Wines. I have an Instagram handle. It's Bruliam Wines. I have a Twitter handle. It's Bruliam Wines. We're on Facebook. It's Bruliam Wines. But if you wanted to schedule a tour and tasting with me, that would be on our website, which is www.bruliamwines.com. And there's a tab at the top for tasting appointments. But, like all of us, I'm always on my laptop, on my phone. So I'm always checking into different social media accounts, specifically probably Instagram the most and Facebook the second most. So I'm pretty easy to find. And I do always reply to emails, and I reply to direct messages, and I'm sort of old school. I prefer email the best because I can sit on my computer versus using my fingers on my phone. But I'm just Kerith at bruliamwines.com. So I love when people reach out, say hello, send me bottle shots. They're in a restaurant, they see my wine on the list, they snap a picture and send it to me. I love being able to connect with everybody. That's really the most gratifying part of what I do.
I think so too. And right now I have people around the world, and this is kind of interesting because it all kind of works together. I have had people asking me if they could start time to wine groups in different cities. And I think
Oh
what
yeah,
would
like
be
a
interesting
franchise.
about it is it would put us all in a position where we have groups around the world where, for example, we could focus this week on doing. So I was talking to some people in South Africa. Can you ship South African wines, for example, to these different cities? So we could have, this week is about South African wine. We're going to have different products from South Africa in the package, as well as some music from South Africa. And then a speaker will conference in and talk to you about South African wine, and the package will show up. But doing it with different wineries or different types of wine and different cultures, I thought would be really interesting. And then I've had a lot of universities. We had a little blip here with COVID, but I've had quite a few universities asking me if I can take people on wine tours. And I've
Oh
had
yeah.
all kinds of people saying, can you take me on a wine tour? And students and business people. So I think it's a good time to start thinking about wine tours again. So, okay. So the last thing that's interesting to me, and I think everybody else, what would you say some of your tips for success would be moving forward successfully? We all have to go through things that don't go well, trials and tribulations, and we move forward. So what would you say some of your successful tips for entrepreneurs would be, or women?
Sure. I guess number one is just grit and determination. Whether it is calling, years ago, calling a grower that I admired to see if he would sell me his fruit and having to cold call him. And they're saying, well, no, I'm not sure. And then just having the determination to follow up with polite but successive emails, every 6 or 8 weeks, eventually leading to their selling me fruit. Or whether it's Instagram and you post a video or you post a photo and nobody likes it and you're like, wow, I thought that was kind of funny. Just keep going forward, just have tons of grit and determination. And I guess my superpower is I'm super duper efficient. I've always been. When I was an intern and I admitted a patient, I would write all the discharge orders at the same time because you're already sitting at the desk. Why not just write everything you need to write at once? So I am very good at being efficient.
And would you say, do you love what you're doing? So when you
Oh, I love
initially
harvest.
started
I
doing it, do you
love
love it?
winemaking. Oh, I
You love
love
it?
winemaking. I
Okay.
wouldn't want to do anything else in the world. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I love winemaking. I love harvest. I love making wine. I love being in the winery. I love doing trials. Bottling is
You have
stressful.
wine
I love getting
dogs.
ready for bottling, and I love being out in the vineyard, and I love that every single day is different. And I was an English major at Cornell, so I write all of our copy. I write all the website copy. I write all the copy for social media. I write all the tech sheets and the tasting notes. So I put that English degree to use in sort of a non-conventional way. I love everything about what I do. I love my job. I'm super duper lucky to be a winemaker. I would not want to do anything else but smush grapes.
Okay. So then you would be one of the people that would say, do what you love and money follows. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I kind of, I believe that too. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a little wrap up here, and then we're going to upload this to YouTube. So you and I don't know, did you know I had a Southern accent? Were you expecting that originally
I heard you on the phone. So
from
you
Eugene,
gave it
Oregon?
away when we were, remember when I was leaving San Jacopo and we were chatting on the phone? It
Yes,
gave it away.
I used to teach class, and I would forget I had a Southern accent, and that where are you from?
Yeah.
Where did you come from? Okay, so we're going to do a little quick wrap up here, and then we will post this to YouTube, and it will be able, and we'll post today. And I believe this is going to start being once a week instead of every other week for the Time to Live broadcast. And then we will talk a little bit later here about doing a live broadcast that's not recorded if you're interested in doing that. I'm so used to speaking now, it's just normal. Okay, so the Time to Wine broadcast. The live broadcast is every other Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is on YouTube, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live. I'm being asked to do Instagram Live, and let's see what else I can add in there. Clubhouse. So if you're interested in watching these live interviews, please hit subscribe and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I am going to tell Kerith here, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing an interview with me from Eugene, Oregon to California, where you're located. I think are you about 8 hours away from me?
I
Or
don't
are you
know.
closer?
I don't know. We're about
from
8 or 9 hours from Los Angeles. So if it's about the same distance from LA to Sonoma, Sonoma up to you in Eugene, then I'd say, yeah, about 8
yes,
hours.
something about 8 or so feasibly I could drive and come visit or
You could
fly and come visit.
fly
Okay,
and come visit.
well, thank you very much. And I'll end the broadcast now, and I'll talk to you soon, and I'll do our little closing here really quickly. And here we go.